So we have our next speaker is going to impart some wisdom on how to flourish, not languish, during your job search. Now, everyone knows that looking for a job can be a soul-crushing, long, and sometimes lonely experience, but it doesn't have to be if you have the right tools. Now, in this practical, reflective workshop, coach and consultant, Dr. Brandy L. Simula will apply the science of human flourishing to help you develop individual strategies for flourishing during your job search. Learn how to set boundaries around intellectual and emotional job search labor, how to balance a job search with everything else going on in your life, and self-care for critical moments in your search in order to ensure your well-being during this important professional and transition. Now, Dr. Brandy L. Simula is the founder of Brandy L. Simula Coaching and Consulting and a leadership development consultant at a Fortune 50 tech company, an award-winning strategist, consultant, speaker, and professional coach. She has spent the last decade leveraging her doctoral training in social psychology to help organizations address top workplace culture and organizational development challenges, including at multiple top-ranked universities at a Fortune 50 tech company. An ICF certified executive and leadership coach. They write and speaks frequently on people and culture strategy, DE&I&B, workplace well-being, leadership and organizational development, and women plus and LGBTQ plus career development. She is passionate about helping organizations empower people to bring their authentic selves to work and flourish personally and professionally, and about supporting women plus and LGBTQ plus professionals thrive in their careers. Dr. Simula holds a PhD in women's gender and sexuality studies and sociology at Emory University. And you can check out their website at brandysimula.com. There we go. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. And I will pass the ball over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Hunter. Can you confirm you can see my slides?
I actually cannot see your slides yet. So unconfirmed from ground control. Aha. Now I can see it. Okay, perfect.
Great. Welcome, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. Whether you're looking for your first position, working on a career pivot, or navigating a job search while unemployed, this workshop is for you. Hunter just did a fantastic job running through my brief bio, so I won't repeat that, but I do want to acknowledge that I'm joining today from the traditional, ancestral, stolen homelands of the Muskogee Creek peoples, which the city of Atlanta, Georgia in the US currently occupies. And for a visual description, I'm fair-skinned with a smattering of freckles. I have bright red curly shoulder-length hair, and I'm wearing a black blouse with a purple necklace. So in our short time together today, we're going to aim high. First, I'll help you understand how to activate the science of human flourishing to help you flourish in your own either current or future job search. Second, I'll help you understand why and how to set effective boundaries around your job search work, which will help you balance your job search with your other commitments and priorities and prevent your job search from taking over your whole life, which is really important. And finally, I'll help you understand the importance of personalized self-care strategies that work for you and how to use them during pressure points in your job search. So first, we'll start with the science of human flourishing, and I'll talk just briefly about how that translates into guiding principles for flourishing during your job search. The concept of flourishing comes out of the academic research sciences of positive psychology, neuroscience, and human performance. Human flourishing examines our ability to experience well-being even in the face of significant challenges and setbacks. So the idea isn't that we need to pretend that everything is great when it isn't, what's often referred to as toxic positivity, but instead to highlight the science that shows our ability to flourish and thrive even in challenging moments. And research on human flourishing shows that our levels of flourishing, in fact, aren't innate or fixed. So you're not born with a cap on your ability to flourish, but instead that we can cultivate a number of practices that evidence shows can increase our levels of flourishing. So because job searches are often stressful and full of uncertainty, practices that help us flourish are especially helpful and important to help us maintain our flourishing as we're job searching. And that's really the point of what I want to share with you today, is the idea that flourishing isn't something that can happen or that you deserve after you land your first or next job, but that you deserve and can have or experience even as you're job searching. So a few core principles can help you apply the science of human flourishing to your own job search. First, and this is really key, remember that your job search is not forever, even if it might seem that way if you've been searching and/or unemployed for longer than you'd like. This is one phase in your life, not the permanent state of your life forevermore. Second, it's important to cultivate your job search support network. A job search support network includes all the people who support you in your job search, from friends and family who cheer you on and help hold you up when you experience rejections or disappointing news during the process, to people who make introductions and referrals on behalf, to mentors and coaches who help you gain clarity and make progress on your job search or career pivot. Third, it's important to set and hold boundaries around the time and energy you put into your job search. And I'll talk a lot more about why this is important and how to do it in just a moment. Fourth, build and use self-care strategies that work specifically for you. And this is also a place where I'll dive into it in quite a bit more depth in just a few minutes. And then finally, draw on a growth mindset as you search. Remember that if you don't currently have a skill or experience that looks like it's important for the roles you're most interested in, that doesn't mean you can't develop those skills or experience. So as you're thinking about your job search, use language like, I haven't yet had an opportunity to do this thing, rather than I can't do that skill, or I don't know how to do that skill. That's really crucial for cultivating the growth mindset that we know is critical to flourishing. Additionally, it's important to recognize that job searching is often inherently stressful, and this is an extremely common experience for everyone as part of their job search. So to know that if you're feeling anxious, exhilarated, uncertain, bored, isolated, frustrated, excited, or joyful, those are common, completely normal aspects of job searches, and so is experiencing a wide range of emotions as you're job searching. Stress and challenging emotions during a job search are normal, but that doesn't mean you can't also flourish, even as you're navigating that stress and/or anxiety that you might be experiencing as part of your job search. Finally, one of the core aspects of human flourishing is to move away from holding ourselves to standards of 100% perfection in 100% of the things we do 100% of the time. Instead, we should be strategically lowering the bar for what we expect of ourselves, and this includes in our job searches. What does this look like in the context of your job search specifically? It means that you don't have to be perfect to land an amazing job. A great resume that you start sending now is better than a perfect resume that you never quite get perfect and so never actually get around to sending. Similarly, expect yourself to be well prepared, but not superhumanly prepared for interviews. And importantly, you should know that dozens of research studies show that women plus and BIPOC professionals routinely but mistakenly assume we must meet every single requirement to be a strong candidate. In fact, the research on how job application and candidate selection processes work shows repeatedly that meeting 60 to 80% of the requirements is great. So don't set the bar so high for yourself that you talk yourself out of applying for positions where you're actually a strong candidate. So before we move forward, I want to pause here for just a moment and give you an opportunity to reflect on your own expectations for yourself in your job search. And I want to ask you to identify one place where you can strategically lower the bar for your expectations for perfection that you may have of yourself in your job search. And I want to encourage you to actually write this down as a commitment to yourself. So again, one place where you can strategically lower the bar for an expectation of perfection for yourself in your job search. And I'll pause here for just a moment to give you an opportunity to think about that question and to write down your commitment to yourself. So next, we'll talk about why setting boundaries around your job search is important and how to effectively get there. The last thing you want to happen is that you burn yourself out during your job search so much that when you do start that fantastic new position, you're arriving burnt out and exhausted rather than excited. And setting and holding boundaries is really important to helping you cultivate well-being and avoid burnout during your job search. So setting boundaries around the time and mental energy you invest in your job search is critically important for several reasons. First, setting boundaries around the time you put towards your job search helps you make the most effective use of your job search time and energy. Second, boundaries around your job search help you avoid increasing stress, anxiety, and burnout, which many of us are experiencing even before we start job searching. Third, boundaries help you prevent your job search from impeding your progress toward other goals. While your job search may or may not be your top priority, it's important that you hold boundaries that let you attend to other priorities as well, including your health, family and friends, passion projects, and other priorities and commitments that are important parts of who you are as a whole human. Remember that while your career may be a very important part of who you are, it is only one part of who you are. In short, boundaries around the time and energy you invest in your job search are critical to preventing your job search from taking over your life. And importantly, this is true even if you're currently unemployed, in which case it's especially important to set boundaries that help you stay connected to family, friends, and community, and not let anxiety or worry about your job search consume your every waking moment. So rather than putting time towards your job search in a haphazard fashion, I strongly recommend scheduling time for your job search. And as you're scheduling that time, in addition to scheduling time for the first 5 categories, which most of us probably already do, including searching for positions, networking and informational interviewing, researching positions of interest, preparing application materials, and preparing for and participating in interviews, I also strongly encourage you to schedule time for 2 other parts of the job search process, which many of us forget to do, but that are important to flourishing while we're job searching. And the first is recovering from pressure points in the job search process. And by pressure points in the search process, I mean pivotal moments like interviews and conversations with recruiters, moments where we have to be quote unquote on, and ideally our fully engaged best selves. For many of us, those pressure points are energizing and exhilarating, but they're often also anxiety inducing and draining. So scheduling time to focus and step into your voice and your passion before interviews, and time to process, decompress, and rest if you need to afterwards, is important to helping prevent burnout and exhaustion during your search, to helping you keep your energy and enthusiasm high throughout your search, and to flourishing throughout your search. And the second critical piece that I encourage you to schedule that many of us forget to is time to work through disappointments and to celebrate successes. And that's also an important part of cultivating flourishing throughout the whole process of your job search. While we might wish we could receive a rejection from our dream job and just keep going like that rejection had no impact on us, making time to work through disappointment and frustration is also important to flourishing and moving forward. Expecting ourselves to be job search robots who don't experience emotions during our search is both unrealistic and antithetical to flourishing. Equally importantly, we should make time to celebrate our successes throughout our search. And I don't just mean signing the offer letter at the end of the search, but celebrating each invitation to interview and to move forward and each piece of encouraging feedback. Many of us, especially those who focus a lot on caring for and meeting others' needs, tend not to make time to celebrate ourselves and our accomplishments. So here, I don't mean you have to schedule like a 6-week celebratory cruise each time you get a request to participate in a recruiter screen. But taking time to celebrate in low lift but meaningful ways is important. So for example, treating yourself to your favorite delicious dessert, doing a binge night of your favorite show, going to dinner with a friend to share your excitement, even a 5-minute dance party with yourself. The point is not to let the small successes go by without recognition. And this too is an important part of flourishing throughout the process of your job search. While scheduling time for your search can be an important part of forward progress, it's equally important to remember to create boundaries that help you mentally take a break during your job search. Time where you aren't working on job search tasks, time, and equally importantly, where you're not mentally hamster wheeling about your job search. Give yourself a mental break from your job search on a regular basis and hold boundaries that protect that mental break. This is time where I'm not thinking about my job search. I'm doing other things. I'm present with family and friends. I'm showing up for passion projects, etc. So before we move on to talking about how and why to develop self-care strategies that work for you, I want to invite you here, like I did previously, to reflect on, and again, write down as a commitment to yourself, what job search boundaries will help you flourish during your job search. And here I'll ask you to try and identify and commit to at least one boundary. For example, I'll take Sundays off from working on job applications, or I won't read job boards after 7 p.m. in the evenings, or I'll exercise or read in the mornings before I jump into job search work. That will help you prioritize your well-being and take a real physical and mental break from your job search on a regular basis. So again, I'll invite you here to think about and write down as a commitment to yourself at least one boundary that you want to commit to around carving out space where you're not going to work on or think about your job search. And I'll give you here just a minute to do that before we move on to talking about self-care. And I see Sanjana asks, do you recommend taking a short break before joining? And I think that means before joining your new organization or starting your new role. Yes, ideally, if possible, it's great to take a break, have some time to do some more extended self-care, prepare mentally, have that transition. It's also often not realistic for many of us for financial reasons to be able to take a break or time away between roles. Sometimes our new organization needs us to start immediately and can't give us that space for a break. But even if you only have a weekend between positions or a day between positions, you can be intentional about treating that time as a break and really prioritizing taking a break over doing regular day-to-day or adulting kinds of tasks. And the more you can carve out an intentional break and pause and say, I'm wrapping up one chapter, here's what I'm celebrating from that chapter, here's what I'm excited about the new chapter, here's what I am intentionally choosing to leave behind in the past chapter. Even taking an hour or 90 minutes to sit down and reflect on and think about where have I been, what are my intentions for where I want to go next, can be really helpful for setting you up to flourish and do well in your new role. So last, what I want to share with you today, and importantly, is that self-care should be a regular built-in part of your job search process. And probably most of us are used to hearing that we should be participating in self-care, that it's important, etc. And for most of us, even who really believe that self-care is important, it's hard to prioritize self-care, especially when we have so much on our plates and our job searching. So I want to talk briefly about what self-care is and why it's important for job searching, and then just share some strategies for self-care around those critical or pressure points in your job search process. So self-care consists of practices that are unique to each of us that help us reduce our stress levels and enhance our overall well-being. Importantly, self-care is not a check the box once and you're done task, but instead an ongoing set of practices and habits that help renew and restore our energy and health. Equally importantly, self-care is not a one-size-fits-all, but instead what works for each of us is highly unique and individual. So getting up at dawn to go for a sunrise run is invigorating and energizing for some folks, while a horrifying idea to others. Similarly, while some folks might find a long hot soak in the tub recharging, for others, laying still doing nothing for a long period of time is a horrifying idea. So the point isn't to randomly pull from self-care guides or practices, but instead to invest the time in figuring out which self-care practices are most effective for you. And then, and here's the real trick, actually doing them. And this doesn't mean you have to schedule a 2-hour run every day or block 5 hours on Sunday afternoons for a bath. It can be a 20-minute soak, a 5-minute dance break, a 3-minute period steeping tea and reflecting on what you're grateful for. In fact, the science shows us that the more quick, effective doses of self-care you can distribute throughout your day, the better. And of course, that's not to say that you shouldn't prioritize a morning run or a self-care Sunday day if either of those options work well for you. And remember that, and this is one of the things that I say most often about self-care, the baseline requirements you have to meet literally just to keep yourself alive, like sleeping and eating, don't count towards self-care. They're important, you have to stay alive, but self-care is above and beyond what you have to do just to stay alive. And I see a couple comments and questions coming in the chat. Yes, exhausting to experience so much rejection after spending so much time taking assessments and application interviews. And this is one of the reasons why having those small, short, low-lift self-care practices that are really effective for you personally is really important. So 5 hours of self-care after you've just spent 3 hours working on applications can make self-care feel like another chore instead of doing what it should be doing, which is energizing and recharging. Yeah, Mary says, I used to make sure I was on Indeed every day, but have rolled that back to a couple of days a week. I make sure I have a plan over the weekend to the upcoming week in terms of job searching. And those kinds of boundaries where you're still very checked in, really making forward progress, but not just constantly tied into your job search are really effective. And Tirsa says, I spend more time on LinkedIn now than Indeed because I have the chance to network and read relevant articles while I'm also looking for work. Now that strategy where you're getting multiple parts of your job search met in one place is really helpful. All right, so as I mentioned previously, pressure points in the job search process, again, interviews and other sort of high stakes moments, are places where having effective self-care practices are especially important. And knowing how to, for example, refill your cup after an interview helps you flourish throughout the search and maintain your energy for all of the other projects, commitments, and priorities in your life that keep right on going alongside your job search. In particular, I recommend having self-care practices to rely on before and after interviews. What helps raise your energy before an interview, and what helps refill that energy after. Again, these don't have to be long, involved rituals, but instead should be the practices that work for you. And I'll give you just a couple of examples here. So you might do a 5-minute pre-interview dance party to get your energy endorphins up, or you might spend 5 minutes meditating or in quiet reflection if your energy and anxiety are through the roof and you need to focus, calm, and recenter. Again, it's not pick one and run with it. It's really thinking about and knowing yourself and what's best for you. Similarly, you might spend 20 minutes after an interview snuggling a furry friend to come down from the interview, or if you find you have lots of leftover nervous energy, you might get in a quick workout. One other suggestion, and if you don't already have a gold star or feel good file, this is a wonderful tool to have for job searching and also just for the project of humaning. A gold star or feel good file is a collection of positive feedback you've gotten, emails or notes from colleagues and friends telling you how amazing you are, celebrating your strengths and accomplishments, and other feedback you've gotten that highlights and celebrates your superpowers and accomplishments. Spending a few minutes skimming that gold star or feel good file before an interview can be an excellent confidence booster. And it can also help when you receive a rejection or disappointing news to contextualize that one no in the broader context of all of your accomplishments and successes, and prevent that one rejection from feeling like it represents or reflects your entire career value. And a gold star file isn't just helpful for job searches, of course. You can read it before a big presentation, after a disappointing performance or evaluation, or any other time you need to sort of amp yourself up or contextualize a disappointment or setback. Sarah says, listening to music is my go-to before an interview. I love that, Sarah, and that I love that you know what your go-to is. And Tirsa says, a good Spotify playlist. Yep, goes a long way while getting ready for an interview. Having those practices really helps your brain lean into, we can do this, rather than stress or anxiety. So here again, I'll pause just before we move toward the end of our time together and invite you to identify and commit to at least one easy self-care strategy. And it sounds like many of you already have one that you can use to support yourself, particularly at a pressure point during your job search. This doesn't have to be, again, complex or a 3-hour routine, but can be a quick 5-minute practice that helps you center, raise or lower your energy, or otherwise refill your cup. So pick what works for you. And again, I want to really invite you to write this down as a commitment to yourself to practicing self-care around pressure points in your job search. So just a minute here to do that. And then finally, if you remember only one thing from what I've shared today, I hope it's this. You are allowed, indeed encouraged, to flourish during your job search, rather than feeling like flourishing is something you can or should do only after you've landed your first or next position. In fact, intentionally cultivating flourishing throughout your job search can help you prevent stress, exhaustion, and anxiety during your job search, and also help you keep being a whole human whose career is a high priority perhaps, but after all, only one part of the amazing whole human you are. So just a couple of key takeaways. Again, being intentional and setting job search boundaries is critical to helping you flourish. Self-care is an important part of your job search process. And flourishing can and should happen throughout or during, and not just after your job search. So thank you so much for making time to be here today, for being curious about how to flourish as you work on a job search or career transition, and for prioritizing your well-being and learning how to strengthen it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the summit and would be delighted to connect and talk further.
Thank you so much, Brandy, for that. It's so beautiful to hear all of the tools that we have available that are easily, sometimes I forget to do when we're talking about self-care. One of the things that really struck me was how can we, I'm going to add an adjective here, but how can we compassionately lower the bar in certain places? I've never thought about that. And I just feel like I often am just looking for permission, whether it be kind to myself, whether it be a different way I didn't think about. And that is such a chef's kiss quality there of like, oh, I have permission to just, be a little kinder to myself. Maybe I can lower the bar on a certain topic just a little bit to be a little kinder, because that will help me flourish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Hunter. And thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your summit.
Thank you so much.